Welcome to the Hotel News Now podcast network, part of the CoStar Group. This is the Next Gen in Lodging podcast, which examines trending issues in the hospitality industry, led by three hoteliers who are really shaking things up. In this episode, host Omari Head speaks with the leadership team of the Hotel Revival Baltimore, an iconic boutique hotel in the heart of Maryland. General Manager Donte Johnson and Director of Impact and Culture Jason Bass dive into their hotel's focus on art, history, and heritage. Thanks for listening, and visit Hotel News Now for the latest industry news every day.
This is Omari Head with the Next Gen in Lodging podcast. I am the founder of the National Institute of Lodging Education and am pleasured, that don't even sound good, and am excited to be joined here with Donte and Jason. Before I hand it over and allow you all to do your introductions, I'm going to actually do a lightning round here of quick questions.
Ooh.
All right?
Lightning round. All right, you ready?
I'm in.
Your brain switched on?
Let's go.
All right,
Let's go. I got my third, fourth coffee. I've lost count.
All right.
Let's get it.
Apple or Android?
Apple.
Android.
Okay, for sure. Full service hotels or limited service hotels?
Full service.
Full service.
Yeah.
Okay. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Wine.
What kind of wine?
I mean,
Free.
I've been on a Malbec thing lately, but like my wine palate is not that sophisticated. I could drink most wines and be fully satisfied. Okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. What was the first concert you went to?
Alicia Keys.
Oh wow. I don't know, but the most memorable concert was it was kind of funny, and it was A$AP Rocky opening for somebody I can't remember, and it was like one of his first concerts.
He wasn't
This is
A$AP
long
Rocky
story
yet?
long. He wasn't A$AP Rocky yet.
Right.
He was only doing like the cover stuff, and he walked so far away from the stage all the way to the back of the room, and I was just standing at the bar laughing and drinking. He came all the way up to us, and I just turned my back and kept drinking.
No.
So I remember that, and I felt horrible like a couple months later.
But I'm not surprised. Like,
So
knowing
he
you, that
checks
doesn't
in.
surprise me at all. Like,
I
that
hope he
tracks.
does not recall that. He checks
He
it.
don't know me.
Like, I remember this one time I was performing and there was this guy.
Holy, I hope not.
Yeah, that'll be all bad. And what's your favorite book?
Ooh, Outliers comes to mind, but I mean, there's so many. There's so many.
Yeah, it's hard to not pick a Malcolm Gladwell or just like a self-help book in general. But you know what's crazy? He put me on with a book called is it The Gap? It's like a short book. It's an audio. God, I can't remember the name of it.
What?
But it's called The Dip.
Oh, The Dip. Yeah,
The Dip.
Yeah.
It's a great. I listen to it probably like every 2 to 3 months. It's an easy listen, but it's really informative.
You know what I do multiple times a year?
Art of War
on audio. It's like a quarterly.
I
Like,
love it.
let me check in and just make sure
Some solid
I'm
songs.
still. Yeah.
That's when he comes back and he's like, that's why we tell them to burn the hoodies so they can't do the. No, it's this line about
Burning the bridges.
burn the that's you like
Oh, no,
burn the boats.
Yeah, burn the boats.
You burn the boats like of your your team, so they don't have a way to get back home. They have to fight their way through wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you've been listening to Art of War.
My favorite takeaway was arriving to the battle early, because they were saying like what you've already lost if you show up late, because like you struggle to get there, you're out of breath,
No
like,
footing. They got position.
all of that, and that was always a really important thing for me to understand as it relates to timing. So keeping on the theme of timing, what makes Revival come to life? What makes this hotel? What is the personality of this hotel? And if you had to like describe it as a celebrity, what would you say?
Yeah, I think I would love to hear your response to the celebrity question. I think what makes the hotel come to life, I mean, I think it's just a vibrant space. And even before it was heavily programmed, it was well designed. There was a lot of intention in all the details. But what you hear in the background right now, like a DJ playing in the lobby, those are moments where if you're staying here or you just live in this community, like there's a lot of folks, like these folks right here, they're not hotel guests. You know, they live, you know, in the area around the hotel, but they're welcome to come and be in the space. And, you know, sometimes that's commercial activity. They're buying cocktails or buying coffee, whatever. But sometimes it's just people who are contributing to the vibe, which is something that, you know, that we encourage. We intentionally spend time and energy and resources to incentivize that behavior, because our belief is that if you're a guest from out of town, you should be able to experience the best of what Baltimore has to offer, not just the things that we can sell to you for a profit. And our belief is that that cumulatively adds up to an experience that's just fundamentally different than what you're going to find anywhere else.
I agree. I say Black Justin Bieber. It's like, no, I'm joking. I was watching Atlanta the other day. No, this, you know, what makes it really hard to do is we have a lot of different layers and textures and experiences in this building, right? It's mid-century modern furniture, but then we have like a DJ performing over here. We have canned cocktails. We have, you know, curated, you know, mixed drinks upstairs, and it's just so many different elements of things that don't necessarily overlap equally, but there are points in the Venn diagram they could touch. That I can't think of a single actor or just like celebrity that kind of embodies a lot of those things. Yeah. I can think about a few different people, you know, coming here and staying here and really, really enjoying it over the alternatives as well that are in market. And we're not even in like a tourist district, right? We're in a culturally rich and diverse district, which I think, you know, we become a better fit in a community because of all the different things that we can execute and do it well in an authentic way, right? Yeah, that's always the key. That's always the most important thing to what brings all of this stuff to life.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing about Revival is the space that we're sitting in today was not what was originally planned on paper when this was being developed. And I think we've been able to really embrace opportunities along the journey to just do the best version of a thing that we can do today. But we wouldn't have necessarily said, okay, well, in this space, what you need is, you know, this incredible world-class cocktail program downstairs in a space that has 25 seats. We would have said, let's make that space twice that size, because we would have been thinking about the bottom line, not necessarily the vibe. Midstream, we can say, you know what, 25 seats is probably right. And we could do a bigger version of this concept, but this feels the best right now. Let's do this and just know that we'll make up the difference somewhere else. When I think about celebrities, I try to think about like the amount of ground that we cover in the programming and the amount of range. Like Issa comes to mind as some like I think like appropriately playful and funny, and I think a lot of what we do here is intentionally geared toward being accessible. But at the same time, there is also very serious work being done here to make the community better and to create access for people.
And so, point of clarification, you mean Issa Rae, correct?
I do mean Issa Rae.
Not correct. As in the album Issa.
No, I mean Issa Rae, for sure. I refer to her on a first name basis because we're cool like that. We're not. I don't know her, but in my mind, you know, we're cool like that.
That's funny. He had. I don't know if you know. Hit the. You ever watch the wrap up of some of the shows for Insecure?
Never, not a single minute. Like, literally,
it's like
as soon as it comes,
down.
I know,
it's called, right? So this is that's what it all connected for me. Right. But the guy, I think he's an executive producer or writer, Prentice Penny.
Yes.
I think he would actually fit. He's a celebrity. If you want to, I think we can call him a celebrity. I think he's a good example of like the mix of this, right? Like he's tailored, but not overly tailored. Right. He does a good job of like mixing in from a style perspective, like unstructured clothes along with like traditional structured items. Yeah. It feels like he can have a deep conversation about food and then explore like be curious and explore new drinks and flavors without feeling uncomfortable, but laughing about what that experience is like. And I feel like that's a part of what this is. Yeah. It's a point of discovery because it's so accessible. So
I love that.
So we can explore things like that here,
And like you said, Donte, with the idea of it being organic, with the idea of it being intentional, when in a world now where DE&I has become a buzzword, it's everybody's, 3 favorite words. We're planning towards it. First, let's talk about what inclusion means to each of you all, because one of the things when we came up with Next Gen and Lodging, we said everybody's talking about diversity. I'm less about just being diverse. It's like, are you inclusionary and are you equitable? We know that diversity exists. Like, you can go and see our line level staff at a lot of different hotels. Like, it exists, but it doesn't filter up. But more so, the lens that you're looking at is supplier diversity, all these things. But what does inclusion mean to you, Donte, and then you take it, Jason?
Yeah. To me, it means, and I think kind of the direction that you were going is in every level and every phase of what we do, creating access. And so we don't ever have conversations about DE&I in this building. And I'm not going to say, like, it's just what we do, because it is, but but there's also a lot of intention around it. Like, we didn't all just wake up and decide we're going to be the people who do inclusion. But in every decision that we make every day, who we spend money with, who we hire, how we pour into people, how we create space for people, and how we smooth out some of the rough edges that create a dynamic like what you're referring to, where on the whole the industry is very diverse and reflective of the communities where we do business. But the further you go up the org chart, the less diverse that it is, which means we're delivering on the promise of the industry to a narrow group of people. And largely everyone else, somehow along the way, either the culture spits them out or, they decide that, this isn't for them because it's not serving them. So for me, inclusion means breaking down all of those barriers to access that have been kind of baked into the industry that you and me grew up in. And I think, bringing in people like Jason as an example, who, I don't think this man ever thought to himself, I'm going to work in hospitality. In fact, it's probably the furthest thing from what you thought you'd be doing.
100%.
You got trapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's, I don't want to go second anymore. Killed that answer. And in addition to that, it's, for me, it's about creating space for that diverse group of people so that they do feel welcome and they have an opportunity to express who they are without judgment or just being punished for that, right? Like, I think when it comes to being inclusive, you also have to consider what it means to adhere to certain traditional things that are in a lot of spaces, but deeply, deeply baked into what the hospitality industry is. Yeah. These are uniforms, this is hairstyles, these are types of hair, grains of hair, we talk a lot about the Crown Act here and what that means to the country, but specifically what it means in the hotel space. And we've been able to discuss that as
real quick.
Yeah.
That's a Google moment.
Yeah.
You all look up the Crown Act like it's a CROWN.
Yeah.
The Crown Act. Go ahead, brother.
And as legislation that is working to prevent discrimination against, or hair-based discrimination in the workspace. Right. Not only are we trying to have those conversations with the HR director so that we don't have any of those issues, and Donte and I both have natural hair. We also want to make sure that guests, when they check in, that they feel seen, right? So, if they have natural hair, we've worked with a local maker to develop a super silky set, right? It's a hair bonnet, it's a pillowcase, Yeah. Who else is caring for these people like this, right? They're just like, come in, you get what you got over here. This will definitely pull out your baby hairs when you go to sleep. You wake up in the morning.
Right.
So sorry you forgot.
Edges
are done, right? And for those who don't know what edges is, this is how you get, this is a moment for you to research it so you can understand what diversity and inclusion is about. This probably shouldn't be the first time you've heard, topics like this or things like this, because they are incredibly important to a large segment of the population that you either employ or you serve. Right. And if you're in the hospitality industry, shouldn't you be hospitable to all of these people, to both groups? Right. So I just, hopefully it gives some little food for thought. But that's how I feel about inclusion.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of little sort of inclusionary moments. And so when you think about it through the lens of DE&I, there's a lot of things that we've done, like the bonnets and pillowcases, where we were trying to celebrate and amplify, this legislation, but also this conversation. And I think, the price point isn't low. We weren't, but we're also not making money on that. Essentially all of the money that's made from those bonnets and pillowcases goes to that local maker. And this is a lady who's, Nicole Mighty, she's incredible. She's making these bonnets and pillowcases in her house.
Shout out to
and
Nicole.
Shout out to Nicole, man. She's uber talented, but she doesn't have the same cost basis as if we had got these things made in a factory overseas somewhere, which we very well could have. It would have taken half the time. It probably would have been a fraction of the cost, but it wouldn't have aligned with what our values are. So when I say every decision that's made, it's not just the fact that we're going to do this thing, it's how we're going to do it, who we're going to do it with. And if nobody buys those bonnets, which people already have, but if nobody did, we'd still have that bonnet sitting there occupying real estate in our lobby because it's creating a conversation that we think needs to be had.
I also have it on my Instagram, and then Drake tried to copy me and wear a bonnet like a month later.
This is true.
I just want to point this out right now, live on this show.
That's right.
Drake, you're a thief of my style.
You have 24 hours to respond.
You respond. Outside of that, I think, and we really just talked about it in a physical sense, right? As like dealing with like the human side of this, but we haven't really explored what inclusion means on the idea side of things. And the idea part of this, and you and I talked about this before we started recording, is just as homogeneous and like, narrow as the individuals that are working in these spaces, right? So, like, how can we expect this? How can we just keep doing the same things and thinking that play, right, is gonna lead us to success for forever, right? We have to adapt because things change. People change, the world changes, market changes. There's all these other things that I don't think are necessarily being considered. And, we got visionaries like Donte coming into these spaces, willing to take risks. This is being recorded. that are making space for people like myself, people like Ryan Rhodes, aka DJ Impulse, which is our director of content and Sonic Identity. We have a concierge here that is thinking out of the box on how to provide an incredible like level of service, but also introduce the city and the community to our guests in ways that we haven't seen done before. She curates our gift shop, which is where that bonnet lives and exists, which is designed for to have a platform for local minority-owned, BIPOC, LGBT, everything. Those businesses specifically, if we can't buy them into the hotel, like as far as like coffee into the cafe or something that's a part of the in-room experience, and here's an opportunity to still offer something to those small businesses, and that's there.
And we could talk about this for probably more time than we have, but I do want to make one additional point about DE&I in general, is that we don't look at this from a sort of paternalistic perspective. Like we're not doing this because we are in a position, like we do understand power dynamics, but this, I believe, serves the industry best. So I think as an industry, when we think about things like DE&I or whatever the buzzwords that we want to use to capture the idea of treating everybody fairly and justly, this is what serves the industry best. So I think a fully optimized environment is one where everybody's being engaged with fairly and on a level playing field. And like an example that I can give of this is when I first started here, shortly after I started in June of 2019, the announcement was made that Baltimore was getting CIAA, which the three of us in this room understand exactly what that means. We probably had a very similar reaction in our minds as soon as that statement was said. But I was in a room full of people where nobody knew what that meant except the people in Visit Baltimore who booked it. So what this tells me immediately is that we're going to win this week. And we'll probably win it for the first few years until people figure out what it means, because we're talking about a basketball tournament in that room when what I am thinking about is an immersive cultural experience, right? So I think a fully optimized version of those businesses is one where every one of those leaders, if they're not a person who's in that space and understands, can go back to their team, and somebody in the room can explain to you what CIAA is exactly and how you need to move. But if, going back to Jason's word, homogenous, if everybody on my team is of the same space, in the same culture, likes all the same things, then there is nobody there who can help us to optimize our approach to this. And there's a million different examples of that we can probably think through and how the industry moves. So bringing more people into the space, having more people around the table, including people who did not grow up in the industry, is what helps us to optimize the business.
And it's dope you say that because speaking on CIAA and considering the city that they moved out of,
right,
that also hosted NASCAR, right? And there was complaints from about a certain hotel that put minimums on the table during CIAA that were not also imposed during NASCAR. They only did it depending on who the audience was. My operations background, we had a similar thing. I'll never forget. It was a black fraternity was having their conference at the hotel.
Yeah.
And the security guard goes on Google and YouTube and finds all this stuff. And it's like, look, we're going to tell people they can't bring in coolers and this and that. And it's like, hey, we got a cheerleading competition that just left. Did we tell them that?
Right.
And it's like, well, no, but.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, if you want to be on the news, I just want to be able to say I was the guy in the room that told you you're about to be on the news.
Right.
And I was just like, and this is where it got even more complex. I'm like, you're looking at him through just this one lens because there's something called intersectionality.
Right.
The fraternity was coming in on the heels of the National Medical Association, bunch of African American doctors, right? So I'm like, they're already in house,
right?
So you're gonna tell people it's different rules because you're now affiliated with a different group, although you're here, like. It just doesn't. So going back to your point about having people in the room, but more importantly, having people in the room who have the voice, that actually know how to exercise it and speak up. So when you came to raise your voice and say, "Hey, I think that a director of culture and impact is important," how did that go? And what concerns did you have, and you know what was that conversation like?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you know I've had very similar experiences to the one you pointed out. When I was in Miami, I someone had to explain to me what WMC was because I had no idea what Winter Music Conference was before I moved there. I don't really listen to electronic dance music; it's not a thing that I was familiar with, and so we went through the entire process of preparing ourselves for the beach to be taken over by WMC. A month later, we're talking about Memorial Day. And it's like batten down the hatches, increase security, barricade the hotel. And I was like, yo, what makes this event any different than what we just did a month ago, except for the race of the people involved? And the looks on the faces of the leaders in the space were like, oh, no one's ever asked that question before. And so there was a learning process that we all went through of, we don't need to treat folks any differently, but that's a process in education. This role, I mean, the way I sort of initially brought this into the conversation was we always had an intention for this hotel to be heavily programmed and for us to do things. And, I think my version or my thought of what heavily programmed and versus what maybe the larger industry thinks are probably different. But we wanted to do things like have local partnerships, support people in the city who are doing incredible work to better the community, even DJs for brunch and things like that, the things that a lot of hotels are doing.
Right.
But what I saw was that the team wasn't really tuned up for that. So if the F&B director has to go find a DJ for brunch, but she doesn't know any DJs, then that's a problem. If the director of sales and marketing is in charge of local partnerships, because in our org chart, that's the role where that responsibility should live, then that's a problem. And so what we had was a lot of scenarios where people who were very good at their day job were tasked with these other things that are in the best interest of the business, but just aren't things that they necessarily had the relationships or the aptitude to really do well. So the programming was going to fall flat.
Only reason I'm sorry for interrupting is just because I think that's a key thing that's applicable for a lot of our listeners that are operators in general, whether you're GM, AGM, is trying to force people into things that aren't their strength.
Right.
And it's just, the amount of time that I imagine that you freed up for the director of sales to focus on booking. Right. To be able to get out there and drive and do what their strength is. For you to be focused on the overall operations. And I can go out there and say, it's worth it for me to engage Jason, who's a tastemaker. Right. You be the kingmaker. We put this all together. Let people kind of operate in there. The one thing that I found out that there's there's your gift zone, and then there's your areas of strength. But operating in your gift zone, you just do so much more.
For sure.
So Jason, you operating in your gift zone in this role, what did that look like for you to get that call to say that this is a thing, we're green lit, it's about to be official? And how much pressure did you feel to perform and that you still feel to perform? Because as we've seen, COVID was just, super trash for our industry. It was awful things that everybody did cutbacks. What did those things look like for you in those days when you say, like, I just don't ever want anybody to look at this as an accessory on the P&L, and I want to make sure that my performance and my delivery has substantial ROI. What did that look like for you for like your 30, 60, 90, first years? You're able to be like, look, like this is the move. This is the wave of the industry, and I've proven it through this. What was kind of going through your mind, and what were your steps?
You talk about the monument lighting moment too.
Yeah. You start. You should start with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because that we're recording today because yesterday was the monument lighting across the street from the hotel. Big major event in the city. It's almost like the Christmas tree lighting, but it's the Washington Monument in the park across the street. But 3 years ago at the Washington Monument lighting was when we first had a conversation about this. Wow. So it's essentially the 3-year anniversary of the first exploratory conversation that he and I had about, I feel like there's something here that we should explore. And so, here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, we got connected because I had been throwing a series of events here called the Night Brunch, right? And he was coming on as a new GM. I got his contact information, and I was like, hey, Jason, I just want to introduce myself. Hopefully we can build a relationship and we can continue to do this thing together. And he was like, first, I got to vet you. So he came to a couple of those, a couple of our events.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, this is cool. We can do this. Let's make some changes. This is how we'll make this a win for all of us, right? I learned a lot from that process. And, as we continue down this path, I ended up getting the contract to provide the beverage program for the event that he was just talking about, right? And this is all spirited cocktails and beers and wines and things like that. So I went out and rented 2 mobile bars and worked with a friend of mine who had experience building a bar team and bar programs. And we collaborated on this, and I invited him out. It was right outside of the hotel. I'm like, bro, you got to come see this. And he was like, it's cold. It's 2 things I don't do. It's cold. And you play with my phone. So, so he comes out anyway, and I'm like, I convinced him. I'm like, I think we had a hot cider, a spiked hot cider. So I was like, I'll get you a spiked hot cider. He comes out, he sees it. And I think that was one of those moments where he was like, oh, he's just not a promoter. He's not this party guy. He's got interest in other areas, and he can execute on multiple levels, right? Large format or small,
right.
Any space, indoors, outdoors, etc. Right. So as we're talking through how we could potentially work together, he's like, why don't you come on as a consultant? You do X amount of hours a week. We explore this. Next year, which would have been 2020 at that time, he was like, we'll program the spaces, we'll make them cool. And my biggest concern at that point as we're talking through this is like, well, how do we know this is a success? Like, I don't want to do this and think that, I did a great job, our expectations on the line, and you don't feel the same, right? And we didn't really have a way of necessarily measuring this from a metric standpoint at the time. And he said, you know what, we'll look around this room, which is topside. At that point, we were at Topside, the rooftop restaurant here at the hotel. And he was like, we'll observe a change. Look around right now, see what kind of people are here. And then, hopefully we'll have, these people plus, members of the creative class, other people from the community, small business owners, that kind of stuff. And I was like,
diversity is what we're talking about.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, I can start there. Right. And we shook on it. There was no contract. There was nothing. Right from that point, other than just like old school, trust.
Yeah. And to be clear, there probably should have been a contract.
We tried. It's not that we didn't try.
My wife, who's a judge now, was an attorney at that point, and she would never forgive me if I did not point out to people listening that there should absolutely be a contract.
Yeah. So everyone, we did try to do this, but for the in the spirit of like just getting it done quickly, and just riding the momentum that had been created, we were just like, all right, we'll get started, right? So it began there, and then January we did a lot of planning. February is Black History Month, and excelled at that. It was incredible. We got a lot of press, earned media.
Yep.
And in March we were teed up for a ton of incredible things event wise, and amazing partnerships with, nationally known brands that were coming in to do events with us. Everything changed because of COVID. So at that point, I'm still a consultant. But what we really did realize was like there is an interest in this from not only just like the individuals who are attending this event who weren't just guests, but also from the media side of things.
Right.
Like we had a ton of press happening at that point, and it only increased maybe tenfold once we decided during the pandemic to not focus on bringing people into the space, but bringing resources into the building, creating a community hub of sorts out of the hotel, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it, right? We have all the space, right? The things that people needed the most at the time was access to food, right? And things like that. So we were able to call a lot of our food suppliers, get them to donate their food to us instead of it going to waste because everything was closed from a restaurant perspective. We had storage for it, cold storage, freezer, dry storage, bagged it all up, and we just started a food, giveaway program to anyone, right? It wasn't just, we understood that the service industry was greatly impacted, of course, and wanted to cater to them, but we weren't going to make them show us check stubs or anything like that. Like, just come up if you need it, right? And it became a true member of the community. Yeah. And
those were emotional times, man.
Were tough.
We were, we do a fair amount of what we call market research. So here, drinking and eating across the city. Mm-hmm. And so, we were seeing a lot of people who we've sat across the bar from, who we've been served by, who we've had amazing experiences with and got to know over the years, who 1 week after, indoor dining closed down were in spaces where they were in need. And like that, those were heavy days, man.
They were. So, here we are, just trying to figure out what to do, how to do it. And we ended up being here every day together, basically, and a couple other members from the leadership team at the time, not only just giving out fresh produce, but also cooking hot meals, and whatever was left over, we would take, 50-pound bags of carrots and onions and potatoes, things like that. We would distribute that to the senior centers in East Baltimore, right? And this is at the time where we really weren't sure.
Right.
I'm just adding some additional context to this.
Sure.
We really weren't sure what was going on during the pandemic. Like, we're washing bags of chips, we get from the corner store because we like, you can touch the bag.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we could
I
get,
remember that.
Right.
That was me up until last July.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I stay with a spray bottle of alcohol. If you all know, if you've seen Omari, like up until probably Q4 last year, I ate my first meal out the house July of 2021.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was taking my food everywhere. I had to microwave it. I was about that action. For me, the vid was on everything.
I know that's right.
It was on everything.
Yeah. I accidentally found myself in an old school club party during during Super Bowl in Miami.
Yes, you did.
And
COVID didn't happen down there.
It didn't happen down there.
It's completely fine.
It was a wild thing. Luckily,
we found this out. We were like, "Yo, don't come back to work, bro." Quarantine forever.
I was like, I didn't know. I was like, why is everybody out here? But anyway, how we measure it now is, there's a couple of things that we use to measure it, but of course you got to focus on the media attention. So within a year's time, which is like July to July of last year, we got 3 billion media impressions.
Wow.
Right? So, and it's focused on, primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, the impact work that we do. 3 billion. So I don't know any. There's a lot of organizations that never get that. Hotels, not hotels, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So the numbers don't lie. If somebody wants to say this doesn't have value, then I'd argue that they don't know what value really is. What is that? Price is what you pay, value is what you get. I just had to say that for the friends in the room. And not only that, like, I also learned this from Donte. My job is to, in some aspects, not always in the director of culture and impact perspective, but if I'm bringing people into this space, the right kind of people, it's everyone else's job to extract the value when they get here. So we had to learn different ways of like really leveraging all of that media attention to turn that into something that's extremely valuable from a revenue generating standpoint for the sales office, right? How do we do that for F&B? How do we do that for front desk and rooms, right? And I think the team, the other leaders in this building have really done a great job of like distillation, man, distributing the leads as they come in and being able to speak towards what the interest of those prospective customers are, and then sealing the deal. I mean, we are doing an incredible job here as an overall group. So I think that a lot of people are just going to see what I do as not something that is, required. I mean, a lot of things aren't required, but if you want to be exceptional, you want to be one of the best, and we're showing that and proving that is what this looks like, then, here's the playbook, right? We this is open source, right? Nothing is being hidden, so I offer that to them versus being concerned my job is at risk just because something got crazy. I got the job in the craziest time of the world,
right? And that's when it was the most important. And what you all are showing is the importance of engagement.
Yes.
So all of our hotels, restaurants, they all sit within a community.
Right.
The difference is, do you sit in the community or do you serve the community? And being of service is being able to engage the folks that are around you, even if you don't have a F&B program and you're not necessarily trying to get locals in there. But how can you be of service? So that example that you shared of during COVID and the food distribution and being able to do that, what do you think that other hoteliers can take away from your story? Not just of equity and inclusion, but also of community engagement with a very holistic approach and a very inclusionary lens. What do you think, if it was probably the two messages that you would want folks to take away if they were trying to emulate, duplicate what you're doing, what would those two messages be?
I would say what we aspire to do is to operate a business without walls. And so it's not engagement, it's not inclusion. It is really participating in the community like we would as an individual. And so if I live on a block for 4 years and I don't know my neighbors, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? And so for the longest time, businesses like ours have thrived in communities that haven't. And so it should feel wrong if I'm eating and my neighbors are starving.
Yeah.
And so I think we look at it through that lens, and that informs a lot of the decisions that we make. And I think to Jason's point about our open source approach to this, and I would say just about every bet that we've made along the way in terms of the decisions that we've made have hit. But there's things that we've struggled with. There's things that we, went back and forth quite a bit about internally before we pushed them out. I would say, if you have an interest in it, follow the information that we put out. Engage with it. We're very, very active on social media. We're very available. We're very accessible.
Where can we find you all on social media?
So my IG is the Hoodie Hotelier, which is a whole different conversation about inclusion that I'm happy to have, maybe for another time. But that's where I am. Jason is Jason C. Bass on everything. So just easy for me to spit that out because I've been taught it over the past couple of years.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, though, very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So for the professionals that are listening,
So on any of those platforms, pull up to the hotel, man. We're here. You showed up one day and you were like, "Yo, I'm in the lobby," and I'm like, "Say less. I'm on my way down." We are happy to engage on this. We want to share the playbook. Our hope is that people will be inspired to replicate some of this, but ideally they will be inspired to build upon what we've done and challenge it. Poke holes in it, man. We're happy to be challenged. We don't have all the answers. We're not perfect, but we're just some folks who've done some meaningful things.
I love that. And what do you think the future looks like for your role? What does the evolution looks like? If there was, and I went to school in Las Vegas, so if there was like a mega resort, what do you think it would look like if they had a director of culture and impact, or what do you think that this role ultimately goes to? Because right now, your role is, if it does exist in the organization, it's usually significantly above property, and then somebody kind of overseeing, and it's just like, all right, they're doing what Dr. Joy DeGruy from that wrote the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, called the Fruits and Festival Approach, which is kind of like, all right, this is your month. We're going to do something for Women's History. All right, now it's Black History. Right. Now it's Latinx History Month. So, and that's usually what they're doing. But for you to be on the ground level programming, what do you think that looks like in the future for other hoteliers as they consider building in these roles or building out the programming?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think it's an incredible question, and we've asked that to ourselves many times. Like, what does this track look like within the current, business structure or like hierarchy that we're working within? And it's not as clear as some of the other paths that people can take in the hotel industry or hospitality industry. But what I'm thinking is like here's where everything starts, right? So we'll look at this like we're understanding that the customer is more interested in the community side of things and having a relationship than a transaction. We want now I'm saying the we side of things if I am a customer, but I am. I think of it that way all the time. Like we want experiences, right? And that's what I think you don't always get if you don't have someone around that's focused on something like that, those things. And they're going to have to be, this role is going to have to be broken up into different things that are the focus areas of these different properties, right? Like at a resort in Vegas, I mean, there's so many different people that are, if this is a kid-friendly resort, like we need a director of like families. We need somebody who's going to be able to say, I got all this cool programming I want to do for families with kids of this age when they come up here. Like they'll have these kind of things to do. I also know the area, so I can direct them over here and, serve as a little bit of a concierge with this kind of stuff. We could put things in their room that looks like this, and it's totally just focused on them because that's now their job versus someone who is just a generalist, right? Yeah. From that perspective, right? I think we need to, this is where, unfortunately, I think we need a little bit of specialization in what these new director of experiences and community really look like, like we think about my role should actually be split. And originally that's how it was designed. It was supposed to be two people, one of impact, one of culture. But I think we just, we found a really good way of working together to kind of accomplish both without too much of a strain on anyone, not even myself.
I love it. And Donte, when we look at, overall the level of intention that was required to do, to engage with like the vendors. And when you look at that on the spreadsheet, and like you said, yes, it costs a little bit more to do the bonnets and the pillowcases the way that you did it. What would, if you can share the number, or what would you say is your percentage of the spend in terms of vendor kind of comes with diverse vendors?
Yeah, the way we break this out in our data is local versus non-local, but a heavy percentage of the local is diverse by nature of the city where we do business.
Absolutely.
And so it's north of 80% of our spend that's local.
Wow.
to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area.
Wow.
There are at any given time, just depending on like what we've bought in a given month, there's 30 black-owned businesses specifically that are supported through our operation every day. And so the point that Jason was making about the gift shop is that there's things that that might not be natural to a hotel ecosystem,
sure.
Right? Toilet paper, having a black woman on a toilet paper company is dope, but you're not going to always be able to find all of those things that are core functions of a hotel when you're really looking to be intentional about supporting black-owned businesses. But there's a little girl named Ava who started a dog treat company when she was like 9 years old, and we're like, great, dog treats in the gift shop, they go.
I love it.
And so as a hotel guest, you might not think to yourself, when I'm traveling, I'm going to pick up some dog treats for my dog back home, but you might if it's sitting there looking at you when you check in or when you check out. But I think the more important thing to do with that shelf space, with that real estate, is to have a conversation. Whether we get to talk to you or not, we're having a conversation by putting something in front of you that's been intentionally sourced. That's dope.
And I think, final thoughts in terms of what you all are sharing, what you all got working on. What would you, anything else that you think that folks should take away from our conversation here today? I'll kick it over to Jason.
Wow. I think that, one of the most important things that I've experienced in this industry is that there's a lot of room for opportunity that I don't think we, or the traditional hospitality people, they don't necessarily see it right now. We're always kind of just looking at it from an older lens, of just focusing on getting people into the beds, feeding them, getting them beverages. One thing I've learned from working with the different meeting planners is like every city has space, right? Every hotel has rooms, but like it's all about the story and the emotional connection that you can make for people that drives them to choose you, right? It's not always a price. You know, if you're going to get into a price war with somebody, it's a race to the bottom. But if you can create a true sense of just interest and wonder and curiosity and emotion, then you got a real strong chance of being incredible at what you do. There's so many hotels in the world that need that, right? We are retrofitting this hotel. There was always just a business mission that aligned with what we were doing, but we were able to come on and truly activate within that mission. And if you could think about how many other places in our own city we could potentially do something like this and live outside of these walls and bring those people into this building, make them feel welcome, whether or not there's money being exchanged, there's commerce happening, then we can build an incredible environment that is not currently there. This is an opportunity to design an ecosystem that is driven by the hospitality industry that could shape what the community looks like instead of us just being here and existing without playing a significant role in what this community becomes or what it could be. You know, I think it's nothing but a bright future in front of us if we're very aware of that. You know, but it's not that I'm overly optimistic about it. I think we've been proving it, right? Over the last 3 years, we've been able to take ideas that people saw as absolutely crazy and make that work. And it's either through the means of what we currently have here or through the partnerships that we were able to create with people outside of this hotel that were just in different parts of the community, creative, business, nonprofit, for-profit. So with that being said, it's not like you have to define this massive budget and do all of this other stuff. We were able to help renovate an elementary middle school in East Baltimore, really just, you know, that hasn't been touched, this area of the hotel, area of the school, which is a laundry room and kitchen area, that hasn't been touched for over 60, 70 years. Wow. Right? With the equipment that wasn't functioning. So we partnered with Lowe's. Lowe's, they're the ones who are the experts at this. They have the equipment, they have the know-how, they have everything that was needed to come in. They have dollars dedicated to this. Right. So we were able to make that connection and then get that done for this school. It cost them maybe in cost of goods maybe $7,000, and their labor force was a combination of 3 or 4 stores within the area that, you know, they gave their team volunteer time off to come and paint. You know, they wouldn't let us help. They wouldn't even let us help. We would have been in the way. Anyway.
We showed up in our little Revival T-shirts and sweatpants, like ready to paint and like participate. They were like, no, like we got this is what we do. You know, we got this.
And that's the part about it. It's like it didn't cost us anything but our time to be there and the effort, right? But just because we had the Hyatt name, which I'm sure was incredibly validating when they had to like pitch this to the rest of the team on the Lowe's side. We had the connection with the school. We built a relationship with the principal. We were able to do this together and then amplify it through the Hyatt Bullhorn, right? Through the PR side of it. So everybody gets to hear this story. Why can't this is the playbook, right? Yeah. This is the blueprint.
That's the
We
game.
are saying it right now, right?
Absolutely.
But talk about what that space is used for, though, and then how we got into it in the first place.
So the elementary middle school has a uniform program, right? Mm-hmm. This is inner city, East Baltimore, right? And the laundry room that was in there was built so that it could clean soiled, dirty uniforms for kids that couldn't get that done at home.
Wow.
Right? So instead of them walking around the school with a uniform that's been dirty for days and days and days and nobody, you know, doing anything with it, you know, we now have helped them be able to deal with that and clean those uniforms so that those students feel pride in who they are and they for health reasons too, right? That's another thing.
Absolutely.
But the kitchen area was designed to provide access, education, all of that stuff for the kids that were there. That's not the kitchen that provides food for the school lunch programs or any kind of like breakfast programming, but just everything that community needs that currently exists in a food desert to have the know-how and the knowledge to take care of themselves, right? And to eat the right things instead of choosing hot Cheetos, and candy, because that's what is out of.
I knew you were going to come for hot Cheetos.
Yo,
bro.
they everywhere, bro. They everywhere. I'm tired of these Cheeto fingers. But that's what I think we have in front of us, and hopefully this is just the one of the first stories that are being told.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you all for sharing the success, for sharing the playbook, for dropping the gems, and giving people the opportunity to see what's possible. And you all hit on a few things about things being organic, about you all, kind of moving away from some of the restrictive norms, and really moving into a place of being of service. Mm-hmm. And at the core of hospitality is service. So like I said, we can sit in the community or we can serve the community.
Yes.
And I appreciate you all for doing your services. Not only that, but also being an open book about it.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we don't have all the answers. This is what we're doing. This is what's working for us. And maybe it can work for you. Mm-hmm. And maybe this episode is to serve as an inspiration and a motivation to somebody to try something different.
Yep.
To get out there and say that, you know what, you can be profitable, but you can also be promising.
Yeah.
Right. You can have a great opportunity to really be of service to people. And we also make good money doing it.
Yeah, our case, is really proving out that you can be more profitable by being of service. So it's not. I don't think these are diametrically opposed. I think that part of the reason why the results have been what they are, and we have a very solid sample size of data of 14 months of the hotel being open before we started down this path. And in every way that we measure success, it's not just the media hits, which are off the charts. Our profitability up 200%. RevPAR index is through the roof. I think we cracked 80% 1 month in the first 14 months that we were open. Yeah. We're routinely above 150 now. Yeah. Number 5 in the set to number 1 in the set. In every way that we measure results, we've been able to synthesize what we're doing in the community to drive better bottom line results for the business.
And that's the headline.
Yes, and I think that's going to get a lot of the people who are very numbers focused excited, right? But here's the other thing they should get excited about. It's the awards, right? It's the media that's not just local. Yeah. Keep in mind, we're a 107-room hotel in Midtown Baltimore. Again, not in the tourist district.
Yeah.
I said in Baltimore, right? Yeah. And we have a terrible narrative outside of the city, right? And we're hoping that we're a part of that change, right? In a positive direction.
You are.
But here, thank you. Here we are getting 92 best hotels in the world from Fodder Travel. Fodder. I always say it wrong. Fodder Travel, right?
Yeah, the Travel and Leisure top 500.
Travel and Leisure top 500, right?
Top 500.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And we've been in Washington Post. We've been in
literally
the Rob Report. We've been on CNN. Not just Baltimore Sun. We've gotten out of the local bubble, right, and gotten into a global audience,
internationally known, locally accepted.
For folks who do go and follow Jason on IG annually, he does his annual Grammy post with like him and all his trophies and awards. I've come to look forward to it every year.
I'm looking to see yours this year.
No, man, that's your bag,
list.
That's your bag, bro. But every year it's Jason and the trophies, right? So. That's a great point, man. The trophy case is full, and I think all of that. I think we don't seek validation. I think we believe very strongly in what we're doing, but it is great when it's acknowledged, particularly from the community that we seek to serve. But it is interesting that this work has gotten onto so many radars outside of Baltimore, people who we don't interact with directly, but who've heard about what we've done and want to amplify it.
I love it,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I love it. And so at the core of it, and I appreciate you closing us out with kind of the profitability piece, because that's always key, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we are a business, but at the same time, when you have the opportunity to hit that triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit,
For sure.
it makes sense. So appreciate your time. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again to Revival
appreciate you,
for this,
bro.
this
Yeah, man.
glorious space and this great energy. And man, y'all brothers are awesome, and I look forward to people reaching out to you and picking, not just picking your brain, but picking up the torch.
There we go.
So we want to see more people, duplicate this and emulate this, so that we can get into a much better space within our industry, and ultimately we change the narrative of what our industry is and what it means to work here. So appreciate you all listening to us today. So this is Omari with Next Gen and Lodging. It's been a pleasure. Thank you again to Hotel Revival. Thank you to Donte. Thank you to Jason.
Thank you, bro.
My pleasure,
Peace.
bro.
Thank you for listening to the Hotel News Now Podcast Network. Make sure to subscribe on Apple or Spotify for more. And visit hotelnewsnow.com for more hospitality industry news.